Hi there, and welcome to Cool People. In this series, I'm basically like to share my friends with you because over the last 2 years, since coming out very publicly as being transgender and doing lots of trans awareness training and public speaking and media appearances about it, I've met all sorts of amazing people with a wide variety of backgrounds and just incredible stories to tell. And I thought this was just such a great opportunity just to share them with you. So the cool person who I have at the other end of the line today is a lovely man called Mark Esho. And he's a multi-award-winning entrepreneur, a speaker, and an author. So welcome, Mark.
Oh, thanks, Casey. Thanks for having me. I'll say, it's for the first time someone's called me cool. I get called all sorts of things, whatever.
Well, you definitely are, and you've got incredible story to tell, and there's lots of different parts to it. So I mean, it's sort of knowing where do we start. So if you'd like, if you'd like to sort of maybe see if we can make a start on it, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So I was born in Leicester. So I was born in Highfields. My parents were students, so they came from Nigeria, and they actually met on the boat from Nigeria, and that's how they first met. And sometimes when you mention boats, it's not a refugee boat. You just kind of think visions of this refugee, nothing like that. It was basically a cruise liner, and because back then, this was the 60s. Back then, it was very, very expensive to fly. So they started uni at De Montfort, which was then called Leicester Polytechnic. My mum got pregnant, and then I was conceived. So what was normal then for a lot of kind of Nigerian parents was, because obviously they're studying, also having to work. It was very, very difficult for them to actually look after a baby as well. So they put an advert in the Leicester Mercury for a private fostering family. And a family called the Archers, based in Newbold Verdon, responded. So Newbold Verdon is about 10 miles from Leicester. It's a tiny little mining village. So from the age of 6 months, I actually went to live in Newbold Verdon. So I was there for, quite a while. Just before, I think it was actually, it's apparently, as the story goes, it was because I was there with my sister, because there's only 11 months between myself and my sister. Okay. And after my parents finished studying, when my sister was 3, and I was probably about 4, my parents decided to go back to Nigeria, but they decided to take my sister, not me. Oh, no. The rationale was that because I was a lot more settled with my foster family, the Archers, as opposed to taking me, which was fine with me because I was happy where I was. But unfortunately for me, about a year later, I basically got up in the middle of the night and wanted to go to the toilet. So I woke up Mrs. Archer because I was scared of the dark. And we got to the toilet. I couldn't go. And then I walked back to my bed, to my bed, not knowing that would be the last time I'd able to walk again unaided. So as I got into bed, I had a massive fit, and I blacked out. And I woke up in a hospital the following morning at the Leicester Infirmary, completely paralyzed from the neck down. Okay. So as a child, it was a very traumatic, scary experience of actually feeling that, I don't know, we just feel very helpless as a child. And then apparently doctors said I had a really bad bout of polio. What they couldn't figure out is that by then polio was eradicated in the UK. Yeah. So how could someone get polio when it's supposed to have been eradicated? So they started to do all these tests. My case was quite severe. With me being paralyzed from the neck down. Fortunately, I was able to breathe, so therefore I didn't need an iron lung, because there are people that basically had that severity of polio requiring an iron lung. But I managed. I was kind of fortunate in that respect. But my chances of survival were about 10%. They said I would never, ever walk again. But you know what? 3 years later, I was actually on my feet.
Wow.
So yeah, 3 years later. So I started to gain a bit of strength back with my back, so I could actually sit up. Then my arm started to come back slightly. So by the time I was 8, I was able to walk with 2 calipers and 2 crutches on a wheelchair. Obviously, using a wheelchair for distance, as I do now. But with the partial recovery, so my recovery in the end was my left leg is completely dead. I've got 10% on my right leg, then I've got 50% on my left arm, and I've only got 100% on one arm. So I'm a walking miracle. The fact that I can walk at all is just exactly. It kind of defies logic.
It does.
But fortunately, yes. So time I was 8, I was walking. I was then put in a special needs school called Ashfield School. And back then, it was just customary for all children, whether you've got a learning difficulty or any sort of physical disability, to go to Ashfield. And the whole premise was to protect you from society. And so it wasn't normal for disabled children to go to mainstream schools back then. So yes, I went to Ashfield, and my parents, I was about 8 or 9 when I started school. Obviously, I'd missed so many years of schooling. So I didn't learn to read and write properly till, oh gosh, I think it was actually much later. But anyway, that's a slightly different story. I'm not going to jump ahead. So anyway, so my parents found out that I was in a special needs school, because don't forget, my parents were in Nigeria when this happened, although they came down to see me. And they weren't happy that I was in a special needs school, and decided to come and get me. So they came to get me when I was about 9. And, despite the fact that I was protesting, not wanting to go, because I'd actually grown up in Newburgh Verdon. Sorry?
Had you had any relationship with your parents at all? Have you got any memory of them? Really?
They used to come and visit me. While they were students, they used to come and visit me, and probably I'll see them like twice a month.
Right.
Sometimes I'll go and stay with them, but I can't remember ever going to stay with them. Apparently I did, but it's not something I.
But it must have been. Must have been frightening for you to
absolutely
then be taken away.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost, to a certain extent, I was being taken away by strangers. So I went from living in a very small village, a tiny village, to going to Lagos, which is the capital. There was a capital then of Nigeria. It was noisy. Didn't speak the language. It was a super traumatic experience, and all I did was cry all the time. But then what I found, what was quite my initial shock to the system, was when I realized that you can't talk back to elders. So so because I was used to conversing with people that were older than me, almost on a equal basis, they thought I was rude. But by being so, that I was a petulant child. And so after a few slaps, I then realized, oh, actually, you can't do that. And fortunately, going back, one thing that I didn't realize was, and I didn't find this out, by the way, Katie, till I was in my 20s, because my mum kept it from me, that whilst I was actually laying paralyzed from the neck down in hospital at Leicester Royal Infirmary, my dad asked my mum to abandon me. So he basically said to her that, well, there's nothing we can do. The best thing to do is actually just leave him there. Fortunately, my mum said no, and she refused. And so to a certain extent, he was forced to take me. So going back to when I was 9, going to Nigeria, I basically was going into a situation whereby I had a father actually that didn't want me.
It's horrendous. Absolutely.
So it was a massive culture shock. I had a dad that didn't want me. My mum was okay, but she was very busy. And to a certain extent, she was, she was an abused woman, a subjugated woman as well.
Yeah.
So she said, there was very little she could do.
Yeah.
So within about a few weeks of me being there, my dad had woken me up in the middle of the night, and he asked me to put my calipers on. So I was just like, okay, where are we going in the middle of the night sort of thing. But then I kind of knew then not to argue with him because it would just result in violence. So I put my calipers on, got to the car, we drove into the forest. This is like dead of night. By then I was actually getting very, very worried, and I was just crying. So even with the threats of violence, that still stopped me crying this time. And then he took me into the bushes, and what then happened was I was then confronted with a witch doctor. So in my dad's mind, as someone who's educated, he still had the traditional views that kind of what's the best word for it? Traditional medicine could actually cure polio. So I was confronted with this witch doctor, who then went on to, over a period of about 6 months, I've had chicken slaughtered over me. So basically they'll slaughter the chicken in front of you, then pour the blood over you.
Oh my God.
I've had goats, various potions as well that I've had to drink. The worst part for me was the cuts. So basically what they do is that they use a blade. They actually use a blade, or sometimes they use a knife, a very sharp knife. And what they do is that they make all these little marks into your skin. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
And then you've probably heard of it. And then sorry?
I've seen it done on documentaries. Yeah,
exactly. And then what they'll then do is rub that potion into your skin.
God.
The worst part of it is that when they need to repeat it, they're not open up the same wounds as well. And so it was a pretty dire kind of bad situation for me to find myself in, as a small child, and I didn't have anywhere to actually cope with it.
No.
My mum couldn't do anything because she probably thought, okay, my dad was doing the right thing. In his mind, he thought he was doing the right thing, but never thought to himself, how can a child actually survive this sort of trauma? And it left me traumatized for years afterwards.
I bet it did.
And anyway, 6 months went by. I wasn't getting any better. And thankfully, thank God, he gave up. So he completely gave up on that. They took all his money. And there's a section in my book, by the way, called Karma, which is interesting because I'm not going to go into. You have to read my book. But,
fair enough. Yeah.
So anyway, so I started school. So I've been there in Nigeria for about, I think within 3-4 months of starting school. I remember one of my first schools I went to, my calipers had broken. And because what happened was my dad had moved from Lagos. My mum lived in Lagos, but my dad had moved elsewhere. And I was basically, myself and my sister actually went to go and live with him. So we were so far away, it was remote to any hospital, that I couldn't get my calipers fixed. So as a result, I had to basically call around, just to get around. And I remember my very first school that I went to, I had to be carried into the school. And I remember sitting at the back of the school, sitting at the back of the classroom, and when it came to lunchtime, obviously I couldn't go out. And one thing I remember what I used to have to do was also hold myself as well, because I didn't want the embarrassment of asking one of the teachers to pick me up to go to the toilet. So I was in a very hot country, and I used to limit the amount of water that I used to drink.
So you get dehydrated.
Sorry?
So you were getting dehydrated.
I was getting dehydrated,
Yeah.
absolutely. Horrendous experience. But then, the abuse from my dad didn't get any better. Any excuse, he'll beat me up. It wasn't violent just to me, it was also violent to my siblings as well. He was just a very violent person. And if he comes back from work in a bad mood, all you need to do is just say something the wrong way, and you're in for it basically. That's what it was. But obviously, I couldn't go out and play. So the silver lining for that, for me, was is because he used to say to me that, oh, you're the eldest in the class, so therefore, you should be doing better than anyone else. So I used to study hard. So as a result of that, I went from I think it was called class 1, my first year. I got double promotion to the third year.
Oh, right.
And then from the third year, then I went on to the fifth year. So I only spent 3 years in primary school.
Gosh.
So which was great. So then I went to secondary school. Secondary school was a complete nightmare. I'm not going to talk about that one, but again, being different, was a major issue. Then I had to deal with bullies. So I was getting bullied at school and getting beaten up at home. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, and it got to this stage. Something I don't like talking about, but I think I kind of got used to it now to a certain extent. Is I just tried to kill myself when I was 13. Unfortunately, I failed, and I just took a whole load of pills. And I just found them in the cupboard, and then started to feel ill, and then told my mom because I started to panic. My mum then called my dad, and my dad's response, my dad's response was that, okay, he wasn't going to take me to hospital, and once I felt better, they was going to beat me up because he'd missed an afternoon at school. That's the sort of person he was, and so it was So my childhood, I'd say, was pretty bad, pretty bad.
It's an understatement and a half, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's an understatement and a half.
I know. It was, it was hard because, looking back to a certain extent, I don't know. It just, I don't think it's until I started to have children myself that I realized how bad my childhood was. And, because then you think, oh, well, I wouldn't do this too much. I don't want to do that so much. And then you kind of realize, oh gosh, my dad was pretty pants. But, I survived it. Thank God I survived it. Then I came back to the UK when I was 18.
Okay.
I came back to the UK when I was 18. I decided to come back to Leicester. So I then lived in Braunston. Back then, this was in the early 80s, so still a lot of racism around, So I came to the situation whereby, okay, I've kind of managed to, my dad obviously stopped beating me after I was about 16. I think he just got fed up with it, so he kind of stopped, and and also I was getting a bit bigger as well. So I wasn't that easy to intimidate anymore. And but I've gone from a situation whereby I was gone from having a violent kind of situation to being in a situation in the UK where I started to realize, oh my gosh, okay, I'm the wrong colour. So therefore you start facing racial discrimination. So also being disabled as well. So it's actually more of a double whammy. So came back to Leicester. I think I was in Leicester. I was at Leicester College for about 6 months. Really did enjoy it there. And then moved to London. London, then went back to Nigeria for another year. So that's a long story. I'm not going to go into that.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I got tricked. But basically what happened was I'd gone to London. To cut a long story short, I was doing my A-levels in London, and it was, I've never had a chance to really go out and enjoy myself. And all of a sudden, I was this young kid of about 18, 19, basically living alone. It meant that I could go out, I could socialize, I could party, and I did a bit too much partying. And in the end, I didn't do my A-level. Well, I failed my A-level exams, and so my dad came, and he acted as if he was very sympathetic. He's saying, because he said, "Oh, well, you know, I know what it's like to have studied in this country," and he said, "Do you want to come back to Nigeria, just for a break, for a couple of weeks?" And I initially said no, but he pressurized me. Then I got back. I then got back to Nigeria, and then he seized my passport.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, so I was stuck in Nigeria for, I was stuck in Nigeria for another year. But this time he sent me to go and visit my grandma. So I only saw him like once a month or so. So it wasn't, it wasn't too bad. This wasn't too bad because I was older, and wiser by then.
Yeah.
And so then came back to the UK, and this time came back to the UK. Then met my wife Diana.
Yeah.
We've now been together for, well, she doesn't like me to say this, about 33 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And that's when we, oh God, I think it was in about a couple of years in our relationship, and we had our son.
Yeah.
So we had Ren then, and and that's basically, that's part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's just an incredible journey, and it's amazing that, I mean, because I know your book is called "I Can, I Will," isn't it?
That's correct. Yes.
And I think it's so apt though, because I mean,
Thank you.
to do what you've done, and that, with the businesses that you've got, and everything as well. And in fact, you haven't spoken about your businesses yet, so feel free to talk about those. But it's incredible that you've achieved so much, after having such a troubled start to life that went on for so long. I mean, it wasn't just a small amount of time, was it? It was sustained.
No, you're absolutely right. It was it was quite a prolonged period of time, but it kind of, it really toughened me up. I mentioned the school bullies. That only went on for a year. After that, I started to stand up for myself. And to a certain extent, I don't know. I'll probably say it's probably made me what I am today. Because it's made me quite resolute. I'm very strong-minded, very strong-willed, and I can, and again, because from an early age, I was forced to a certain extent to focus on my studying. I think that's what's really helped me in business as well, because I could just zone out and just focus and, complete tunnel vision. So when I came to set up my first business, and basically that's how I came about. So it's almost by default, really, because I'd gone to university, got myself a master's degree from De Montfort University, then kind of hit the job market, and as a black and disabled person, it wasn't easy. I could tell you that. No one would give you a chance, basically. No one would give you a chance. And in the end, I was working in some dead-end jobs, and basically working in jobs where I was kind of overqualified for. But eventually, someone gave me a chance. So I seized the opportunity, and I was a finance manager for that organization for about 7, 8 years. And unfortunately, I started to become ill. And started to go to the doctors. Doctors didn't know what was wrong with me for a period of 6 months. In the end, the doctors just got fed up with me, to be quite honest. And then someone then just mentioned to me, said, "Listen," he said, "what the symptoms that you're facing?" Because what was happening was I was getting lots of muscle ache, and also I was getting chronic fatigue. So sort of fatigue whereby you get out of bed, in the morning, you're just so tired. And it was affecting my performance at work. I just couldn't function. Sometimes I couldn't even think properly. So someone said, "You probably got you probably got the late effects of polio." And I said, "What the hell is that? I've never heard of it." And started to do some research, and then found out some of the symptoms of post-polio. It's called post-polio syndrome. So post-polio syndrome, muscle aches. You get chronic fatigue is the worst. You then get Parkinson type symptoms, so therefore you get the shakes. So it looks like Parkinson's, but it's not.
Right.
It's basically, it's more down to the muscle weakness. Okay. And what happens is, because you overcompensating some of your muscles, is more wear and tear than anything else.
Okay.
And apparently 70-80% of polio survivors suffer from post-polio syndrome.
I'd never heard of that before.
Even some of the polio survivors never heard of it.
No.
They start becoming ill and they realize it. Oops, what's going on? So so there's been lots of research into it, and there's been like the British Polio Federation is now making sure that they're trying to educate as many of their members, so they know this is what's this is what's happening, and this is how you this is how you deal with it. So I was actually, like, for instance, with the Parkinson's, if I'd known that I could get Parkinson's-like symptoms, then I wouldn't have spent money going to see a private doctor. So I had various tests thinking they thought I had Parkinson's, but I don't. It's just post-polio syndrome. It's just like a benign tremor. So anyway, so I had to leave my job. It was probably one of the worst times in my life. Right. Because I'd worked so hard to get to that level, whereby I had a mortgage, I'd had a wife, I had a young child, and my life was, I was basically getting my life on an even keel, hoping to go upwards.
You were on the up, weren't you? After that troubled start, you were on the up. Yeah.
I was on the way up, and then all of a sudden, bang, crashed down.
Yeah, take down. Yeah.
And got to the situation whereby technically I was unemployable. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so fortunately, I was going to say, it was very fortunate. The internet has always been one of my hobbies. So when I was, even when I was working, I used to take computers apart. I've got no kind of IT training or anything like that. But I used to like taking computers apart and messing around with software and stuff like that. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to see if I can do something on the internet. This is 1999.
Yeah.
So I then came up with this idea of creating like a right move sort of website. So I taught myself a bit of web design, and because I couldn't program, I got help from a student, and I created a website called housesonline.com. And it was exactly what Rightmove does now. It offers free property advertising online. So I pitched it to Leicester Mercury. Leicester Mercury loved the idea. But then 2 weeks later came back to me and said, well, if we took this on, it's going to impact on our relationship with the estate agents. So sorry, we can't help you. Went to the bank, tried to get some money. Bank said, no, you've got no kind of track record of running the business. And by then, I'd put all our savings into it.
Oh no!
Yeah, all our savings. Yeah, we put all our savings into it. So I was basically unemployable and broke.
Oh, Mark!
So I know. It was bad.
It gets worse, doesn't it?
I know it does. Yeah. Well. That's as I said. That's the worst bit. That is the worst, because what I then did. What I then did, I was then looking for ways in which I could market houses online. And so I then thought, okay, if I can get to the top of the search engines, I can get more traffic. So I taught myself SEO. Right. So I just focused, seriously, for a period of 6 months, I didn't go out. I was just so focused that, listen, I'm going to learn everything I need to know about SEO, and I'm going to get these houses online to the top of the search engines, which I did. So I then decided, okay, this was then in 2000, late 2000. I then decided, okay, what do I do now? Do I set up a web design agency, or do I do SEO? And fortunately, I chose SEO, which I knew was going to be harder to do, because no one knew what search engine optimization was then.
No.
Because even Google just started up. Seriously, and even people then, Google wasn't a prominent search engine at all. It was the likes of Hotbot, Lycos, MSN, search engines that people didn't even know about now. They were the prominent search engines then. So because I was technically housebound, because I couldn't go out and pitch for business, I contacted 4 companies. And I said to them that I'll get you to the top of the search engines, but don't pay me. All I need from you is a testimonial. And they said yes. So it's a no-brainer, no risk for them. So, so quick with that, with those testimonials, I then approached four other companies, and I said to them, but this time I said to them, I'll get you to the top of the search engines, but don't pay me till I get results. And that's how I formed my first company, Easy Internet Services, and that's how Easy Internet Services came to being. And within a year, I was earning more than I was in my job where I was before as a finance manager. Within 2 years, I was employing people. Diana, my wife, then came to join me because she did fashion design. She was getting fed up as a hosiery designer. So she was getting a bit fed up with it. And initially, she said she'd come and help me for 6 months because she wanted to go and study a PGCE. Is it PG? Yes, I think it is. Yeah, it is a PGCE. But she had missed the admissions. So yeah, so she came to join me 6 months, and now runs the business.
Fantastic.
And been there ever since. And and during the time when we've worked with companies like Amstrad, Avra, I don't think Avra's still around. So it used to be Avra PLC, Guardian Co-op. We worked for some major brands. And then in 2004, I saw the gap in the market. This is for web hosting. And I decided to offer free web hosting. And everyone said I was completely mad to offer completely free web hosting. And I set up my second company, which is now based in Bournemouth, which is called Easy Internet Solutions. That one trades as well. We traded a free virtual servers, but we're now netnerd.com. And and we set up the first free web hosting provider in the UK, and now host over 100,000 websites. It sounds great, but a lot of them don't pay us. It's a loss, it's a loss leader model,
right?
But it works. We got a lot of people that still pay us, but there are people on there that haven't paid us a penny since. But yeah, so I've done that. Then I've set up all different sort of websites and businesses. Some of them I've sold on, some of them haven't worked. In 2013, I was invited to meet David Cameron at the Disability Confidence, at the launch of the Disability Confidence campaign. And so since then, I've been, working with the DWP. I give talks with MPs. I work closely with the local DWP here, talking to employers, especially small businesses, about the benefits of employing disabled people.
Yeah.
What else have I done? As you know, various business awards. Latest one was the IOD East Midlands Director of the Year.
Yeah, fantastic.
East Midlands Leadership Awards, National Diversity Awards. I think I've got a few. I don't know if you can see them in the background there.
Yes, yeah.
That's some of them there.
Oh, wow. Well done.
That's some of them, yeah, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, since I've done that, and then and lately, last year, I set up Access Rating, which is a social enterprise. So what we do with Access Rating is essentially we've launched an app. And what this app allows you to do is allows you to submit reviews on disabled access on over 200,000 bars, hotels and restaurants across the country. So yeah, that's it. I've been busy.
Yeah, you certainly have. And it certainly shows you the old sort of saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, it's so true, isn't it? It really is. And coming through all the adversity that you come through to doing such amazing things, it's incredible. And
if you don't, and one thing that in my book, again, you can get my book. It's called I Can, I Will. It's on Amazon. And one thing that I missed out on my book that I can now talk about, I'm pleased I can talk about it because that's something I'm very proud about, was my son. My son was actually born a girl. A lot of people don't know that my son was actually born a girl. And it was, he was very, in his teens, it was a very difficult teen. And we couldn't understand what was wrong with him. Just couldn't understand what was wrong with him. At one stage, actually left home when he was 18, came back when he was 20, and turned up and actually said to us, listen, there's something I need to tell you guys, but I don't know I'm going to tell you. And said, oh, by the way, I actually want to convert into a man. I don't feel comfortable in a woman's body. And you could tell how apprehensive he was, because I wasn't sure we were going to respond. But, it was hard, but it was a relief. It was a big relief that at last we now know what's been bothering him all this time, that he wouldn't let us know. And, and we just, we embraced it. And we supported him for his surgery, everything else that he wanted to do. And, it kind of helped him build his confidence. Although it was hard though, because, someone asked me in terms of, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? And it feels like you've basically had twins, like one of them has died, but then you still got the other one. Because you've gone from, from having a girl to having a boy, and who's actually now a man. And it was a very, as I said, I'd wish, I'd wish I could have talked about it in my book.
Yeah.
But my son wasn't ready.
No, and that's right, absolutely. And
he wasn't ready then, and I didn't want people to know about it.
Absolutely, and some people never come out, and that's fair enough. But when you do, you have to come out when you're good and ready. I mean, I came out with a big bang, but that was mainly as a business protection exercise, because my photography and video business was and still is named my old male name, Martin Neves Photography and Film. So so because of that, I felt that I had to come out so publicly, but then it's funny that from then, that has sort of followed on sort of doing all this trans ambassador work and forming Cool to Be Trans, and it's ironic now that I'm actually better known now as Katie than I ever was as Martin, even though I was fairly well known then. So it's funny that I could actually change the name of that business to Katie Neves Photography and Film, but I'm not going to, because it's no, because it's part of my story, and I'm proud of that, and because I'm totally comfortable with my past and with my old name. It's actually quite nice in a way, in that it honors my old self, even though it's not my name anymore. It's a business name, and so I'm proud of that. It's its own entity, and so that's fine. But I don't like being called Martin anymore, because that's not my name. My name's Katie. But but that's just my personal choice. I'm comfortable with it. But absolutely. A lot of people aren't, and I know a lot of people aren't, and but that's just how I've done it. But it's obviously I sort of came out with a bang. But say most people don't do it like that. But it's funny you sort of saying about it feels like a twin has died. I think it does. It does feel a bit like a bereavement in a way, and to be honest, I felt it myself. When I first, I only admitted to myself that I was trans. It was actually on the 11th of January 2018. Remember it very well. And when I finally admitted it to myself, it did feel like a bereavement, and it felt as if I was sort of saying goodbye to Martin, and Katie was taking over. And from that day onwards, and I've never looked back, and never regretted that decision at all to admit that to myself, and to do something about it, because it's not a choice. It's about being trans. The only choice is whether you do something about it or not. And the thing is that if I didn't do something about it, then I just know that I would just get into a spiral of depression. And whereas now, I mean, I don't think you knew me before, did you? I don't think you knew me as Martin, actually, did you?
No, I never met your Martin. No. Therefore, for me, it's obviously going to be.
So you've always known me as Katie, but but so many people who knew me as Martin before, sort of saying now how much happier I look, and I'm not surprised, because this is the real me. It's
absolutely,
and being able to live your truth is just incredible, and you must have seen it with your son.
It's absolutely the same with Ren as well. It's a completely different person. Completely, it's as a teen, very angry, defiant, and we could never figure out, very spiteful as well, hateful at times. And but obviously since the transition, it's a completely different person, because he's now happier with himself, has confidence with himself.
Yeah.
And okay, it's taken him a while, but like most of his close friends kind of knew, like when he went to university, he actually went to university as a man.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when it started. Yeah, obviously because it was in his 20s when excuse me. But so his close friends knew. But it's now a couple of years ago. Well, so it's actually last year that he basically came out on social media. And for me, I've been part of him either way. It doesn't make much difference, because Ren's Ren at the end of the day. But he's happy, and and that's the most important thing, because life is too short. Seriously, life is too short.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so pleased that you and Dinah are so supportive of Ren, because it does make a huge difference, and so many parents aren't, and I've had my own struggles in that department, and I've lost my sister through it, and I think families are always the hardest, to be honest. I think friends in the main have been very good. I've lost a few friends, but then they obviously weren't real friends. but generally, the vast majority of my friends have been brilliant, and business colleagues and everything fantastic. And the reception I've had has been absolutely great. It's been fantastic.
What's interesting, because it took my mum quite a few years to accept it. At one stage, she actually stopped talking to us at one stage.
Really?
Yeah, but who actually accepted it very easily? It was my dad.
Really?
I don't get it. Seriously.
Really?
He just accepted it. He said, "Oh, that's fine." If that's what he said. If he's happy, well, he actually used the other pronoun.
This is the same dad that took you to the witch doctor.
Yeah.
And had chickens slaughtered over you.
Exactly. But having said that, though, what's interesting, Kate, is that as he got older, he really mellowed out. It really changed as he got older. As he got older, he got wiser. Because as I said, there's bits of the story that I've missed out. Like, for instance, when I was about 15, he came home with another woman and basically told my mum to get out with her kids. So, so I've got. You'll have to read the book. So I've got five. I've got 4 half brothers and 1 half sister.
Wow.
As well. And again, that's a story within itself.
God.
And it's basically just get out.
So, Mark, there's a film in this.
Sorry?
There's a film in this. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Really? There's got to be. I'll tell you, if there's any film producers and screenwriters watching this, I mean, goodness me.
I know, but that that's just the that was the way it was. There was no divorce or anything. So my mum negotiated with him, and she said that if you allow the children to stay, I will go peaceably. I'll go without any fuss. So she left and actually moved to Lagos.
Gosh.
Yeah. So yeah.
Gosh. Blimey, what a life.
What a life, exactly. Well, it kind of makes you wiser, doesn't it? And makes you more empathetic towards people and stuff like that at the end of the day. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So there's not much I haven't seen, or there's nothing to assess next time. Kind of shocks me to assess.
No, and I think that's the thing, and I think that's certainly what's sort of toughened me up a bit with obviously with my transition and everything that I've gone through on my journey, and that when problems come along, it's easy to put them in perspective, and you think, well, actually, I've been through a lot of crap before, and compared to this, well, actually, I can deal with this. I can cope with it.
No, you're actually spot on, because again, that's one of the reasons why I decided to write my book. Because I was going through some things late 2017, early 2018. I was just going through some stuff in my life, and then realized to myself, you know, I've gone through far worse things than this. This is absolutely nothing. And that's when I thought to myself, and again, to a certain extent, I'd kind of buried those memories because I just didn't want to remember. And I remember reading the first draft of my book. I couldn't read it because it was that, you know, I was so traumatized. Seriously, I was kind of re-traumatized by the whole experience.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Because I kind of buried it. So just, you know, so it has been quite therapeutic for me because, again, normally things that I've spoken to you about, I wouldn't be able to talk about this before.
No.
Yeah, I'd really, really struggle.
Yeah.
I'd really, really struggle.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I really, really appreciate that, Mark. I mean, I know, you know, I've heard some of your story before, but I didn't hear as much as you just told me just now, and it's been incredible, to be honest. It's just blown me away. It really has.
Thanks. Well, you have to get the book, Katie.
Yeah, I will, definitely. I can and I will.
You will get the book.
See, I'm on brand as well, you see.
I know, absolutely. I like that.
Oh, well, thanks ever so much, Mark, and thanks everyone for watching this video as well. And there are lots more to come. I've got lots more people lined up, so I wonder who's going to be next.